Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we take a look at the Glorious Model 02 wireless. This is the latest and greatest from Glorious. Is it any good? Let's find out. Okay, so in today's video we're going to take a look at the Glorious Model 02 wireless. This is the latest and greatest from the good people over at Glorious. I should say straight away, this has been sent over to us for review purposes from the distributor in the UK, which is overclockers.co.uk, so massive shout out and thanks to them. And also there will be links to them in the video description if you want to check it out for yourself. They do sell it at pretty much the same price as everybody else, so yeah, do have a look around. Price-wise, at the moment, there are actually two versions of this. There is the wireless and the wired version. The wired version, you'll be looking at somewhere in the region of about £65. And if you're looking for the wireless version, which is the one we've got here, you're looking at just under £100. So yeah, a little bit of an investment there, but you do get a 2-year warranty, which you can actually upgrade if you register with Glorious themselves for an additional year. So a market industry leading 3-year warranty on a wireless mouse, which is pretty decent. You also get multiple means of connection on this, so you get 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi, you also get Bluetooth 5.2 low energy, and of course you get wired as well, should you want to use that. You can actually use the wired mode whilst the actual mouse is on, so you can carry on using it. So if you are using it wireless and you notice your battery is getting a little bit low, you can just go ahead and plug in that USB Type-C connection, and you can charge and use it at the same time. Sadly, there isn't a dock included in this, which I think would have been a really nice addition. But in order to keep things nice and lightweight at 68 grams, there have been some things which have been omitted. They've also gone to great painstaking lengths to change the design of the shell itself to make it more comfortable and also to make it as light as possible, whilst adding features and also adding extra things like addressable RGB, which is now brighter than the previous version. So yeah, lots of things they've changed on this to make it a much better mouse and also much more stable and also very nice to grip. So let's go through the unboxing process and see what it's all about. So obviously you can tell from the packaging, so this is the Wireless 02 images on the side. On the back goes through the specifications with the whips and all that. So when it comes to the whip, we'll go through that in more detail when we take it out of the box. I'll leave on the screen so you can check out the details for you there. When it comes to battery life, we are looking at 110 hours if you're using it on 2.4 gigahertz. If you switch over into the Bluetooth 5.2 LE or low energy mode, you can, without the RGB being on, get somewhere in the region of 200 hours of usage on this, which is a massive improvement on the previous model and is also one of the best on the market currently. Opening the box, inside you have your marketing information and all the cool stuff you normally get, so stickers, QR codes, all that kind of stuff, so you can check those out. There's also this interesting piece in here. It says my RGB has been set to 5%. Now this is basically to save on power. Now I've actually found that even with it on a very, very low setting, it is actually still pretty visible. So potentially it does sound like it's a little bit of a cop-out, actually reducing the intensity of the RGBs to a very, very low setting. But actually anything over 50%, you don't really notice the difference anyway, but we'll take a look at that a little bit later. Something which actually isn't included in the instructions is how to pair it with Bluetooth, which is a little bit strange. We have made a separate dedicated video on that, but for those of you who just want the quick answer, essentially all you need to do is grab your mouse, flick it into Bluetooth mode, press and hold the DPI button and the side two buttons, and it'll go into Bluetooth pairing mode. There is a more elaborated video on that coming out, so do check that out if you need to. And obviously carrying on with the unboxing, so we get the mouse itself, which we'll take a much closer look at shortly. Also included in the box, there is a very lightweight USB Type-C to Type-A cable. So this is going to be used for charging duties. There's also what appears to be some kind of ferrite core on there to remove interference, etc. Even though they don't necessarily need to, the polling rate on this particular mouse isn't particularly high at the kind of industry standard 1000 Hertz. Which is absolutely fine, and again it's one of those things that as you go up in polling rates you do actually need a pretty high-end PC or at least a processor which can cope with those higher rates. Also in the box, clearly this is wireless, so it will need some form of wireless adapter if you're using 2.4 gigahertz, and you do get this little one here from Glorious. Nice feature about this is if for some reason this tiny little thing you lose it, you can actually get replacements and you can actually pair the device with a new receiver very easily using the core software. Also, to make things a little bit easier on your desktop, you've got this little dongle, so you can plug in your USB Type-C into one end, and it goes in one way, and then you can plug in the receiver dongle in the other end, so you can have that permanently plugged into your PC. If at some point you obviously do need to charge your mouse, disconnect this bit and plug it into the front of your mouse, and then you can use it quite easily with a wire. The wire, again, very low drag, very lightweight, so you probably won't find it too much of a distraction. Okay, so now we can take a closer look at the mouse itself. So if you are somebody who's already had the Glorious Model O, then you're not going to find this too much of a distraction from the original design. Something which they've done, which I personally feel is a much better option, is they've removed the hexagonal openings, and they've actually removed them entirely from the mouse buttons, which I prefer because I didn't like those. And also on the back section, we've now got these rounded circles, which are more condensed and compressed. And actually, when you're using it in the palm, you don't really notice them there at all, although it does give you a little bit of additional grip and doesn't give you that pain that I found that I did get with the hexagonal mesh. And that was actually copied by a lot of other mice manufacturers, and the same thing applied. It always felt a little bit rough or like it had hard edges, whereas this, with these very small, tiny little holes, actually does feel completely natural and also allows your palm to breathe a little bit if you are using a palm grip. So what other changes have they made over the original Model O? So one of the first things you'll notice is the mouse wheel. Although it still has that same feel to it, it has been raised slightly. So this has now got a 6mm height, whereas previously I think it was like 3 or 4. So it does feel slightly higher. In terms of the actual hump and the actual shape, the ambidextrous style, very, very similar and pretty much identical. So if you did like the feeling of the Glorious Model O, then you're going to like this a lot. It does fit in the hand very nicely, and it's probably more suited towards people with either medium to large hands. For those of you with smaller hands, don't worry, I'm pretty sure the Minus model will be available very shortly. Other parts of the redesign, so like I said before, previously on the front buttons there, you did have that hexagonal mesh. They've also replaced some of the sections in here to make the buttons a little bit nicer to use. And also we've got a little bit more flaring actually on the front of the buttons there. So when you have your fingers resting on them, they do feel very nicely comforted in there. It does feel very stable. And even in the most heated of gaming moments, there is that ridge which kind of keeps your fingers in place, which I personally like a lot. You've got your DPI button on the top there next to the wheel. The wheel itself, very nice feel to it. And actually, if we take a listen to what it's like, not quite silent, but very close. And the actual click itself is really nice. Very sharp, very defined, as are the other buttons. So these buttons are kind of custom made ones. They're actually Glorious's own, but they are made in collaboration with Kailh. And they're using the kind of Kailh 80 million click switches, which we'll give you a listen to now. So very nice buttons, very responsive, very crisp feeling. So if you do like that crispy feel, then you're going to like these a lot. Again, something else they've changed from the previous version is the pre and post travel from the switches has been minimized a great deal. So if you do like that sort of snappy feeling, then you're going to like this a lot. Also in the software, you can configure the debounce setting anywhere from 0 to 16 milliseconds. So for those who like to tweak those settings, you certainly can do, as you can with things like the liftoff distance and other things which we'll take a look at a little bit later. When it comes to the sensor, so this is using the Banff version 2 sensor, and if you're not sure what Banff stands for, maybe you should ask Samuel Jackson. He will probably be able to help you out there. You can probably get a good idea of what that means now. But essentially, it is a reworked version of the Pixart PAW3395 sensor, which in itself is a fantastic sensor. It's just been slightly tweaked, obviously, for Glorious. You do have up to 26,000 DPI, and you can set it as low as 100, should you be so inclined to do so. You've also got 650 inches per second tracking and 50G acceleration. A nice feature of the new software, which they've just recently updated, is the fact that because the PAW3395 sensor, or the Banff 2.0, however you want to look at it, because it also features motion tracking, or motion sensing, or motion sync, however you want to kind of look at it, you can actually configure that to be on or off. Now, one of the plus sides of the motion tracking is it does obviously smooth out the actual inputs from the mouse, or outputs, however you want to look at it, but you can actually turn that on or off, which some people may want to do because it does add round about 1 millisecond of delay when you do have motion sync enabled. And whilst we're talking about the sensor, let's take a quick look on the bottom. So the sensor, as you can see, is slap bang in the middle there. Just to the side of that, we have got the switch, which enables either the 2.4 gigahertz, the mouse to be off, or into Bluetooth mode, which you can just switch that around there. Also, you have a DPI LED, so that will light up in either of the 4 preset settings, switching between blue, green, yellow, red, etc. So I think you can actually configure that in the software for various colors also. You've got the 100% PTFE skates on there as well, which are replaceable. You can pick replacements up of those. They're a little bit on the expensive side. You're looking around about £15 for a replacement set. And I would actually like to be able to see them come out with the new skates as well, so you can actually make it into like a more of a full-size skate. Maybe that'll be coming later on in the year. Also, things they've done with the sensor, even though it is centrally mounted, they've tried to make it so that all of the hardware in the mouse is as central as possible. So making it extremely well balanced, which is actually hard to demonstrate, but in the hand it does feel particularly nice. So the weight is centered towards that center section where your sensor is, which makes using it, in my opinion, very, very easy to do. On the front, as we said, so we've got the USB Type-C connection on there, which their cable fits in. I have tried other cables and they all seem to fit, as well as there isn't too much of a big plastic surround around your cable, so you should be fine there. And also you can see there the angle of the front buttons there, which is all very nice. We've got on this side the Glorious logo, or at least the model of the mouse. They've actually reduced the logos. The previous version had lots of logos everywhere and the face on the side, whereas now they've kind of minimized that, so we've just got a little bit on the top there. But yeah, otherwise very nice. The finish of it is really nice as well. The matte finish, which has a kind of almost like a semi-gloss, I guess. Let's call it a semi-matte. It's not shiny and it's not completely matte, so there is a little bit of a gloss to it, but it actually does feel very grippy, and on the sides they've got that follow through as well, so yeah, it does feel very nice, and you can kind of pull it into your hand very nicely, and it does feel very, very nice. When it comes to the actual measurements of the mouse, so we're looking at 61mm across at the front section. When you get towards the middle, it tapers into about 56mm, and it flares out towards the back at its widest point at 66mm wide. The total length of the mouse is 128mm in length, so again, you can work out whether or not that's going to fit your hand. When it comes to the height, at the highest point of the hump, you're looking at 38mm, and at the front section, where the buttons taper off, you're looking at 12mm height. So let's take a look at the RGB features on this mouse. So I've got this currently plugged in on the wire because stupidly I've let the battery go flat, but just to show you can use it on a wire as well as wireless should you want to. If you want to change any of the settings in terms of the actual RGB or the brightness, what you can do, press and hold the DPI button, the scroll button and the front button, and then you can cycle through the various lighting styles, of which there's a few built in. Some of them a little bit kind of nausea inducing, but I guess it's better than nothing. And personally for me, I think the RGB flow works very nicely. And something else, because of the holes in there and because of how it's done, I think it all looks actually quite stylish. For some mice, especially some of the ultra lightweights, when they've got very, very little of the skeleton available, then it shines through and it doesn't look particularly nice. Again, something they've changed over the original Model O is the fact that this is a one-piece construction, so you don't have the additional extra plastic in there, which you could see as reinforcement. So yeah, it just looks very, very premium, and also extremely tough and resilient. There's virtually no flex in it whatsoever, even if you're being really, really tough with it. Yeah, it doesn't creak at all, which is absolutely excellent. Build quality is absolutely fantastic, and potentially, I would say, possibly the best build quality in a wireless ultralight mouse that I've had yet. When it comes to changing the brightness levels, again, you can use the DPI button, the scroll wheel and the right mouse click, and you can click through the various levels. So that is actually on the lowest setting, that's 5%, and it's still pretty visible. So if you are concerned about your battery wearing down, then yeah, you can leave it on 5% and you'll pretty much be fine. This is with studio lights on, it's still pretty visible, and it goes up in increments, as you can see there. So yeah, or obviously if you want to save battery a lot, then you can turn off the lighting altogether. And actually this is probably a good idea now to go over to the software, and we'll take a look at what you can do actually in the software application. Okay, so this is the Glorious Core software. As you can see, we've got our mouse there, and it's saying the battery level. Currently it's plugged in wired, so it's yeah, that's not right anyway. But anyway, you can see the details there. So if you go into the mouse itself, you've got the various things. You've got multiple profiles, 3 profiles, so you can choose an individual profile for maybe gaming, productivity, etc., etc. And you can import and export those should you need to. It has got onboard storage. You've got 3 options at the top here. So you've got lighting. So again, you can go in, choose your various RGB modes. So this is currently in glorious mode. You can choose seamless breathing, color, single, breathing, etc. And you can choose individual colors should you wish to. Tell, rave, yeah, you get the general idea. So lots of things you can change on there, or obviously if you want to, you can turn the LEDs off, but we'll leave this in glorious mode. Again, you can choose separate levels as well. So when it's wired, you can have it set to 100% brightness. If you're using it wireless, you can set it down to 20%, 10%, whatever suits you. Click on save, and then that will keep the settings. So that's pretty good. You've also got your key bindings as well. So you've got your left button, so you can configure what that does, etc. You can choose DPIs, macros, multimedia, shortcuts, or you can disable individual buttons should you want to. So for some people that might be pretty useful. Most of you, I think, will end up in here somewhere for performance. So this is where you set up your DPI stages, anywhere between 100 DPI and 26,000 DPI. Click on the slider and you can just move that to wherever you feel is best. This has got nice increments. I normally have mine somewhere in the region of about 1600. That for me works very well. And you can also in here change your lift-off distance between 1mm and 2mm. And also you can adjust your debounce time should you wish to from 16 to 0, so eliminating it altogether. 2 to 4 milliseconds is pretty much what is normally enabled as standard. And also you've got your polling rates here, so you can choose which you want. 1000 is probably going to be the optimum for most people. And also, like I said before, you've got the motion sync option. So if you want motion sync on, then you can leave it on. This does add about 1 millisecond of latency due to the kind of smoothing that it does. Obviously, if you want to turn it off, you can just disable it, click on save. And personally, I don't really notice it a great deal when it's on or off. So if you want the lower latency, then maybe leave it off entirely. But essentially that's it. This works with pretty much all of the ecosystem of various glorious products. So you can have them all into one nice app. And also you've got options in here for automatically launch on startup. You can have it start minimized. Lighting you can turn to choose off as well. So for power saving, you can turn your lighting off if the mouse isn't moved for a certain amount of time, 3 minutes, etc. You can enable or disable. Obviously languages, tooltips, and you can have the option for enabling automatic updates. We're currently on version 1.0.33, and also you can enable firmware updates or redo firmware updates. And also this has got the option for pairing as well. So if you want to pair your new USB wireless dongle with the mouse, and you can go in and do that in here also. So there you go. That is pretty much going to wrap things up. Personally, for me, I think this is a fantastic mouse. Arguably one of the best I've ever used. But on the flip side, it is potentially one of the more expensive I've ever used. So it is kind of swings and roundabouts. I do really like the fact that it comes with a 3-year warranty. That for me is them kind of putting their money where their mouth is and kind of supporting their products. Most mice these days, 1-year warranty, potentially a 2-year if you're lucky enough to get an upgrade or something. But a 2-year standard plus a 1-year additional if you want to register the product, I think is actually pretty decent. It's a very nice lightweight mouse. It feels very good in hand, whether you're a left-hander like me or whether you're a right-hander, it's going to suit both. And I think as well, if you're not necessarily purely a gamer or not necessarily purely a video editor or someone who's just working on their devices, the fact that you've got the option of wireless, wired and Bluetooth low energy, I think this is going to be one of those kind of one size fits all. Well, unless you've got particularly small hands. But anyway, let me know what you think about this one in the comment section. I've got to be honest with you, I'm pretty stoked with it. The only thing I would like to have seen is, because there is a lot of competition on the market at the moment, I would have loved for them to come in with a slightly lower price point. Potentially that will happen. This has been on the market now for about a month or so, and currently it's still at its original launch price. Who knows what's going to happen? Personally, I would like to see it come down maybe 10, maybe even £20. I think that would make it a much more attractive product. Although, having said that, due to the quality, the features, flexibility, I don't think that £100 is asking too much, but maybe it is. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. I think that's going to wrap things up. I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.